Before you reach the room, you feel it. Not as fear, not exactly, but as weight. A kind of pressure that doesn't come from the walls or the structure, but from what the space represents. Jerusalem is alive outside. Voices rise, animals move. Smoke from sacrifices climbs into the sky in steady columns. The temple courts are filled with motion, priests working, people bringing offerings, footsteps echoing across stone. Everything is active. Everything is visible. But you are not moving outward. You are moving inward, and with every step, something changes. You ascend the steps toward the sanctuary again. The massive structure of the temple rises before you, stone, cedar, gold, everything built with precision, intention, meaning. This is not just a building, it is a system, a progression, a narrowing path, from many to few, from open to restricted. You pass through the outer courts. The noise is still there, but it begins to fade, not because it stops, but because your focus shifts. You move through the inner court, closer now. The altar burns, the fire consumes, the smell of sacrifice fills the air, thick, unavoidable, reminding you that access to what lies ahead is not free. Nothing about this place is casual. You approach the entrance to the sanctuary. The doorway stands before you, tall, framed, not blocked, but not inviting either. Because entry here is not about willingness. It is about qualification. And even those who are allowed do not enter lightly. You step inside, the light changes immediately. The outside brilliance gives way to something softer, controlled. The holy place surrounds you. Gold-lined walls reflect the steady glow of the lamps. The air carries the scent of incense, constant, intentional, rising in a quiet stream toward the unseen. Everything here is ordered, measured. Nothing is out of place. You see the lampstand, the table, the altar of incense, all functioning, all part of a rhythm that never stops. Because this space is maintained daily, cared for, entered regularly. But even here, there is a limit. You walk forward slowly, because ahead of you is the boundary. Temple veil. It dominates the room, not by size alone, but by meaning. It stretches from ceiling to floor, thick, heavy, layered with color and detail, blue, purple, scarlet threads woven together with figures that hint at something beyond. It does not move, it does not sway. It stands, separating. And in that separation it defines everything, because beyond this veil is the room. The one no priest enters, the one no ritual crosses, the one that stands at the absolute center of everything, and yet remains completely inaccessible. You step closer, not touching, not crossing, but near enough to feel it, because proximity alone feels different, heavier, as if the space beyond the veil is not empty, but filled, not with objects, but with presence. You look around the holy place again. This room is already sacred, already restricted, already carefully maintained, and yet, even this room is considered outside what lies beyond that veil, and that realization settles deep, because it means that even those closest to the center are still separated from it. You hear the faint crackle of the lamps, the quiet movement of air, the subtle shifting of fabric as someone moves behind you. Life continues here, but beyond that veil, there is no movement, no sound, no daily activity, only stillness, and that stillness is intentional. You begin to understand something that reshapes everything. This room beyond the veil is not forbidden because it is empty. It is forbidden because it is full. Full in a way that cannot be managed, cannot be approached casually, cannot be entered without consequence. You take a step back, and then another, because even standing here feels like standing at the edge of something absolute, something that does not adjust to you, but requires you to adjust completely to it. You realize something else now. No priest, no matter how trained, lives inside that space. No one maintains it daily. No one organizes it. because it does not need maintenance. It does not need management. It is not a space designed for human activity. It is a space defined by divine presence, and that distinction changes everything. You look at the veil one last time, and it feels less like a barrier and more like a warning, a statement, a line that says, "This far and no further," and that line has never been crossed freely, not once, because what lies beyond it is not just sacred, it is absolute, and you are standing just outside it, closer than most will ever come. And still, completely separated, you remain just outside the veil, and the longer you stand there, the more the rest of the temple begins to fade, not physically. The lamps still burn, the incense still rises, the quiet movements of priests continue behind you, but your attention locks onto one thing, the boundary, temple veil. Because everything leads here, and everything stops here, you begin to notice details you didn't at first. The thickness of the fabric, far heavier than any ordinary curtain. This is not something that could be pushed aside casually. It resists movement by design. The colors, deep, rich, intentional. Blue, purple, scarlet, tones associated with royalty, with heaven, with something beyond ordinary space. And woven into it, figures, cherubim, not decorative, not symbolic in a casual sense, but placed there to communicate something specific. This is guarded, not by force, but by meaning. You feel that now, because even without crossing it, you understand this is not a doorway, it is a separation. You take another step closer, close enough to see where the fabric meets the floor, close enough to realize that there is no gap, no opening, no partial access. It is complete, total. And that completeness matters, because it means there is no accidental crossing, no wandering in, no mistake. If someone enters beyond this point, it is intentional, and it is rare. You begin to reconstruct what lies behind it, not through imagination alone, but through what has been revealed. The room beyond is not large. In fact, it is smaller than the space you stand in now. And yet, it carries more weight than everything outside it combined, because within that room, there is only one object. Ark of the Covenant placed at the center, aligned perfectly, and above it, the mercy seat, flanked by the cherubim. Cherubim, their wings stretched inward, forming a space between them. And that space is the reason this room exists, because that is where presence is believed to dwell, not contained, not limited, but revealed. And that is why no priest enters. Because this is not a space for service, not a space for maintenance, not a space for routine. It is a space where everything stops, where human activity ends and presence begins. You feel the weight of that distinction now, because everything else in the temple is active. Sacrifices, incense, lighting the lamps, replacing the bread, movement, responsibility, action. But beyond the veil, there is none of that. Only stillness. And that stillness is not emptiness. It is fullness. You step back slightly, because even imagining that space feels overwhelming, and now you understand something that is easy to miss. The restriction is not punishment, it is protection, because the presence that fills that room is not something that can be approached casually, not because it is distant, but because it is absolute. You begin to think about the one exception, the single moment when this room is entered, not by any priest, but by one, the high priest. Once a year, Yom Kippur, and even then, not freely, not confidently, but carefully, prepared with ritual, with sacrifice, with awareness that this is not an ordinary act. Because stepping beyond that veil is stepping into something no human fully controls. You imagine that moment. The veil parted, not wide, not dramatically, but just enough. And beyond it, that room, still, silent, heavy with presence, and a man entering it, not to remain, not to live there, but to stand for a moment, then leave. Because even that access is temporary. You look again at the veil, and now it feels even more significant, because it is not just separating space, it is separating reality. Two environments that cannot mix freely, two conditions that cannot coexist without mediation. And that is what defines everything here. You begin to see the temple differently now, not as a place where people gather, but as a place that reveals distance, distance between humanity and what lies beyond that veil. You walk slowly along the edge of the holy place, and now every object feels connected to that boundary. The incense rising toward it, the lamp illuminating the approach to it, the bread placed in its direction. Everything points forward, towards something no one can reach. You stop again, facing it, and you realize something that settles deeply. This room is not hidden because it is unimportant. It is hidden because it is central. Too central to be accessed casually, too significant to be treated like everything else. And that is why even priests do not enter, because their role stops here, at the veil. And beyond it, there is no role, only presence. You stand there a moment longer, letting the weight of that reality settle fully, and then you understand this is the most important room in the temple, and almost no one ever sees it. You begin to feel something unexpected. Not fear, not exactly, but awareness. The kind that makes you stand still longer than you intended. Because the more you understand what lies beyond the veil, the more you realize how little of it was ever meant to be seen. You remain in the holy place, but your mind is no longer there. It is behind the curtain, inside the room no one lives in, no one maintains, no one decorates. Because nothing about that space depends on human presence. You reconstruct it again, carefully, slowly, the dimensions, the placement, the stillness. And at the center, Ark of the Covenant, not large, not overwhelming in size, but absolute in significance, because it holds something more than material. It holds covenant, agreement, law, relationship defined in form, and above it, the mercy seat. Solid gold, unbroken, and the cherubim facing inward, wings touching, creating that central space. And that space is everything, because that is where presence is believed to dwell, not symbolically, not metaphorically, but truly. And that truth changes how you see the room, because this is not a place where something once happened. This is a place where something continues, constantly, uninterrupted. You take a breath. And even here, outside the veil, the air feels heavier, because proximity changes perception. You begin to understand why even the high priest does not linger, why he does not remain, why he enters and leaves. Because this is not a space designed for human duration. It is not somewhere you stay. It is somewhere you encounter, briefly, carefully, and then exit. You think about the silence inside that room, not the absence of sound, but the absence of activity. No footsteps, no voices, no rituals repeated daily, only stillness. And that stillness is intentional, because nothing needs to be done there, nothing needs to be maintained, nothing needs to be added, because it is already complete. You look back at the holy place again, the lamps, the incense, the bread. All of it requires attention, effort, consistency, but behind the veil, there is none of that, because the presence there does not depend on human action, and that difference is the key to everything. You begin to realize something deeper. The temple is not just about bringing people closer, it is about showing how far away they are, because every step inward reminds you of what still separates you. You walk slowly along the room, and the closer you remain to the veil, the more you feel that separation, not as rejection, but as reality, because this space was never designed to be fully accessed. Not yet, not in this system. You stop again, facing it, and something shifts in your understanding because you realize this room is not just restricted, it is reserved. Reserved for something that has not fully happened yet, something the temple points toward but does not complete. You think again of the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, the one day, the one moment, the one man, entering that space with preparation, with sacrifice, with awareness that this is not normal, and even that moment is temporary because the veil closes again, the separation returns, the system continues. And that repetition reveals something important. The access is not permanent, it is not complete. It is a glimpse, a moment, a reminder that something more is needed. You feel that now, because the existence of that room raises a question. Why create a space that no one can fully enter? Why place the center of everything, behind a boundary that cannot be crossed freely? And the answer begins to form. Because the temple is not just a place of presence, it is a place of anticipation, of something not yet fulfilled. You step back slowly, the veil still standing, unmoved, unchanged, and yet your understanding of it has shifted, because now you see it not just as a barrier, but as a sign, a marker, pointing forward. You turn slightly, looking back at the holy place. Then beyond that, the courts, the city, the world outside, and suddenly, everything feels connected to that one room, because everything points toward it. And yet, everything stops short of it. And that tension is the message. Because something is missing, not in structure, not in design, but in access. And that missing piece will change everything. But for now, the room remains closed, hidden, untouched, and you stand just outside it, closer than most, and still, unable to enter. You take one final look at the veil. It has not moved. It will not move. Not for you. Not for anyone standing here. And that permanence is what makes it so powerful, because everything in the temple is active. Everything changes, shifts, repeats. But this boundary remains uncrossed. You step back slowly into the holy place. The light of the lampstand steadies your eyes again. The scent of incense fills your lungs. The familiar rhythm of priestly movement returns behind you, and suddenly, everything feels different. Because now you understand what all of this is orbiting around. Not the altar outside, not the crowds, not even the rituals, but that hidden room, that silent center. You turn slightly and look again at the objects around you. Menorah still burns. Table of showbread remains set. Altar of incense continues to release its steady stream. Everything is functioning exactly as it should, and yet, now you see it clearly. None of these things grant access. They maintain a system. They point, they prepare, but they do not complete. You begin walking toward the entrance of the holy place. Each step takes you further from the veil, but the awareness does not leave, because once you've understood what lies behind it, you cannot return to seeing this place the same way. You step out into the brightness again. The temple courts unfold before you. The noise returns fully. Voices, movement, animals, fire. Life continues, uninterrupted. You descend the steps slowly, turning once more to look back. The structure stands as it always has, magnificent, dominant, precise, every stone in place, every ritual ongoing, everything functioning. And yet, you now know something that most standing here do not fully grasp. The most important room in this entire structure is the one no one enters, the one no one sees, the one that remains closed, because it holds something that cannot be approached casually. You watch as people bring offerings, as priests carry out their duties, as smoke rises into the sky, and you realize something that reshapes everything. This system works, it functions, it maintains order, But it does not remove the distance. The veil still stands, the separation still exists, and that means something more is needed. You step further away now, the temple growing slightly smaller behind you, but still dominating the city, still central, still defining everything around it. And yet, now it feels like something else, not just a destination, but a sign, a structure pointing forward, toward a moment when that veil will no longer stand, when that room will no longer be closed, when access will no longer be restricted. You pause one last time, looking back, and you understand something that lingers, that this room, hidden, silent, untouched, was never meant to remain that way forever. It was meant to reveal a problem, a distance, a separation, so that when that separation is finally removed, the meaning would be unmistakable. You turn away, the sounds of the temple fading slightly behind you. But the weight of what you've seen, or rather what you haven't seen, remains, because sometimes the most important place is the one you cannot enter, and sometimes the greatest truth is revealed by what is still hidden. And that hidden room, at the center of everything, was waiting, not to be discovered, but to be opened.